you're not particularly optimistic about the future of Europe. Is that right?
That is correct.
Tell me why.
The main reason is because, as I said before, it's not so much the conditions that we currently experience, but it's what I described previously as this mediocrity of spirit.
I know people are going to listen to this, and a lot of people say, well, what's the problem if it just becomes majority Arab and Muslim? So what? Who cares?
Well, I think the counter question would be, would those people like to live in a majority Muslim or Arab country? But the fact is, did you get a voting bloc, a growing voting bloc, that doesn't really feel any particular attachment to a country, its people, and its history? And if you do not have a shared past, it's very difficult to have a shared future.
What are your impressions of the 8th district, the most dangerous district in Budapest, where everybody told me not to go?
I think that should give us courage.
Exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction.
So we're in Budapest, and we're about to go to the most dangerous neighborhood in all of Budapest. People have advised me repeatedly not to go there. But the most dangerous neighborhood, and I'm with my dear friend Ralph, the most dangerous neighborhood in Budapest is less dangerous by far than an average neighborhood. You can just look at crime statistics. So, are you nervous or worried about going into this neighborhood?
Well, Peter ambushed me with this idea to go to the worst neighborhood, but as he said, since we're in Budapest, my fear level, let's put it this way, remains very low. So at the moment, I'm not particularly afraid, but let's see what we're going to find out.
Yeah. So, do you think people are meant to live in these big cities?
I mean, generally not. I mean, if you look at some of the first studies about urban life, Emil Durkheim comes to mind. He wrote in the 19th century this great study about suicide, particularly why it was peaking among young men especially. And what he found out is that this took particularly place in the cities. So he then coined this term of anomie. It probably sounds much better in the original French. Yeah. But what it describes is that even though you have more and more people in one place, they have less and less interaction with each other. And I think that's one of the most fascinating parts of city life. It's, even though you have more people, it's not as close-knit as rural life is. But I hasten to add, this is not necessarily a nostalgic plea for more rural life. It's more a plea for the possibility to have somehow a way to enable people to have both. This is why I'm such a huge fan of public infrastructure in whatever way, shape or form, even if it does not make a profit. Because the idea is that people can have, in their private life, an easy connection to the countryside, even though they might work in the cities, or the other way around. I think this is very, very important.
So, what are the cities like in your Austrian? What are the cities like there in Austria?
Well, I guess Americans would scoff and say they aren't really living cities. Or I remember, as Donald Trump once said when he gave an interview, that in Austria we live in, what did he call it? In tree cities, in forest cities. I'm not really sure where he got that idea. Where I get that from. I mean, there is one part of Austria that is called, it has tree in its name, so maybe he somehow picked it up. But I hasten to add, we do not all live in trees or in forests.
Your people don't live in trees and forests.
But what is true is Vienna is the largest city with about 2 million inhabitants, and like the next largest city is around 300,000, and it gets like very small very quickly after that. And I think that's a good condition to have. So a significant part of the population had a rural upbringing. And as I said before, I don't want to be overly nostalgic, but I think that overall this is a good thing, and we can go into the details as why to think that this is the case.
Yeah. So we're about to enter the 8th district. Now, a lot of Roma live here, and we used to use the word gypsies. We no longer use the word gypsies. And it's fascinating to me. What do you think some of the main reasons for urban decay are?
I'm not claiming to be an expert on the issue, but somebody who is wrote a great book. I think she wrote it in the 80s or the 90s. I'm not entirely sure. Jane Jacobs. And for those who are interested, the title is The Life and Death of Great American Cities. And she talks both about the architecture, but also about the social structure within cities. And one of the things that is quite remarkable is she describes, and I think I talked about this with you in another podcast, but it's worthwhile to retell the story. She talks about the system of, you can call it social control, and she tells this story about a father, I think it is, who who pulls his own child into his car, and the child doesn't want to go. You know, things that happen on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But she describes how everybody in this neighborhood was looking out of the window, right? And was making sure. So they knew the father, they knew the child, but everybody was checking what is going on. And pretty much this is how she describes this anecdote. Everybody stood ready to intervene if they would think, okay, this is a violent act, you know, this is a stranger trying to kidnap a child. And compare this to something, you probably have heard this just happened recently, and I don't want to mix up the facts, but I think there was like this woman that was attacked in Cincinnati at a concert or something, and about 100 people stood around and they filmed it.
Yeah.
And this would be, I guess, what Jane Jacobs would call the death of the great American cities, right?
Yeah.
Where you have this situation, you have lots of people in a place, but they no longer have any significant connections.
Okay, so two things. So in America, mall culture is dying. You don't go to malls. Like here, I go to a mall, and the mall is absolutely crowded and packed. Hey, did you know only half of you watching are subscribed? If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button to keep the videos coming. Thanks. And when I go to the United States, like the Lloyd Center Mall in Portland, where I used to live, is just an abandoned shithole. Part of that is Amazon.
Yes.
Right? And part of that is we no longer have shops where we live. Amazon, I think, has gutted out, and I can't remember where I read something about this many years ago, like 15 years ago, like the importance of having small stores where you live. There's all, not on this street in particular, but there are so many small stores, small coffee shops, retail stores, outlets, but the price of that is those goods and services are more expensive.
Yeah.
So people love cheap goodies. They want inexpensive items, and I want inexpensive items too. So, but Europe doesn't really have they don't have the kind of Amazon and the kind of fast package deliveries that we do. And I wonder if that's part of the reason as well.
I like the mention the malls. Sometimes I feel, and I hasten to add, I say this as a fan and admirer of Hungary.
Yeah.
I live here half of my time, so I have nothing bad to say. But sometimes it feels, again, in a good way. Maybe some of the viewers are fans of the Netflix show Stranger Things. And
I saw the first season.
Yeah, and I think it's the second or the third season that pretty much takes place entirely in a mall. And sometimes in Hungary, it feels that they try to redo the US mall experience out of the 1980s.
Yeah.
And I mean this in a good way, exactly as you described. You know, it's packed, but you have the ice cream shop in there, and you have all these, the candy store, and you know, the sneaker store, all these different things. What is a major difference? And that's not everywhere. Again, I don't want this to turn into one of these memes where people say, "Oh, America is so much better. Oh, Europe is so much better."
Yeah.
But one of the things where I still believe you can get people to go out or go into the cities is, of course, you know, it's food, it's drink, it's bars, it's pubs. And this has, if I compare places here in Budapest and if I compare places in some of the major cities in the United States, it's very hard to afford. Now, there's a general difference in price level, but overall, if you go to a city in Italy, right, it almost feels, there isn't unofficially, but it almost feels there's a price cap for certain goods you buy in a bar. Like, you know, an espresso is never more than €1.20, or you know, a glass.
Jeez, €1.20, my
Or
gosh.
a glass of house wine, even in the cheap places, unless you're in the center of Milano or Venice, is somewhere between 2 or 3 euros. Whereas in the United States, if you then add in the mandatory tip as well, it's hard to get a decent glass of wine below $10, $15.
Yeah.
And I understand that the average income person in the United States says there is no point for me to go down to the bar or the pub because I can no longer afford it.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at this street. Shops, tourist people. I just never cease to be amazed by, like, I don't know, like, and we're going to be walking into the really kind of the heart of the, it just cracks me up though, the bad district. I often wonder, because I am worried about the collapse of the dollar, the fall of the dollar. I often wonder if, I don't know, I just think, you know, a theme of the show, and you've spoken about this, is the collapse of the neoliberal order. And everybody knows we're in the middle of it. We're seeing it right now, but everybody disagrees on what's going to come next. And I wonder if currency devaluation and unpredictability will have something to do with that.
I mean, this is a great question. Let me give you a twofold answer. I think your currency freaks in the audience and those who are really into this are going to love this.
You can say Bitcoin?
No, not yet, not
or
yet.
Gold or something. Yeah,
But
okay.
well, yes and no. So one thing is, if you measure the dollar against, and try not to be too technical, but it's actually not that complex. But if you measure the dollar against other currencies,
yeah.
you can say it's a little bit of an up and down, but overall the dollar is still looking pretty good. If you look at the dollar versus gold, now this is where I can see that as a fiat currency, or the dollar really has weakened. I'll give you one quick example.
Yeah.
Currently, an ounce of gold buys you, hypothetically, 50 barrels of oil. A couple of years ago, that would only have been 10 barrels. And the reason for that is because the value of gold has inversely gone up with the weakening of the dollar. But the problem with currencies is always, and I'm glad you mentioned this, is what's the alternative? So as so often, those who are dollar doomsayers are not entirely wrong in their analysis, but they often skip the part of who would replace it. It's not going to be the euro, because if you think, and if we think that the United States are on a negative trajectory, well, Europe is not looking better. Europe is probably looking worse in at least the areas where it matters. And China, Russia, or the so-called BRICS.
Hello.
Hi.
Ni hao. Yeah.
They don't really have an interest in doing this at the moment. And they have announcing their so-called new currency now for over, I think, 2009, so for 16 years.
Yeah.
So this is, and the other problem is, without getting too technical, but of course, a significant part of the world is indebted in US dollars. So they have to service their debt in dollars, and that's not as easy as one would think then to replace that currency. A friend of mine used to say, his name is Brent Johnson, for those who are interested. I find he's a very remarkable analyst of these things. And he always argues it's a little bit, although I take credit for that line, he made it more complex, I made it easier, which is that it's a little bit like Siamese twins. So the global economic system and the US dollar. So if you want to separate them, or you want to get rid of one, you run the risk that either one or both of them hypothetically die. So that's one of the things to keep in mind, that change is happening, and change is always inevitable, but that does not mean that it's imminent. So sometimes people think, oh, this is going to happen in a year, this is going to happen in 2 years. It's not going to happen in a year, it's not going to happen in 2 years. It will happen at some point.
Yeah. So let's talk about the social life, or the social structure and the society. I will tell you the main thing that I dislike about Eastern Europe, Western Europe, all of it, is the unbelievable cigarette smoking.
And so I don't know what to say. As somebody who smokes himself on occasion, I know Peter cannot kill me now because I made this confession on camera, so there are witnesses everywhere. I was waiting to say this when we were in public.
Let's go in the park and sit in the park. So this never ceases to amaze me, that this is like the worst section in Budapest. This would be Shangri-La in the United States if we could make cities that were this.
It doesn't seem so bad at all, right?
Seems great. This is a beautiful park we're going to sit in over here. Now that's a little sketchy. Get that building over there. Yeah, let's walk over to the shitty building. So the cigarette smoking really bothers me. But really, that's
that
about
is so
it.
American of you, Peter.
Yeah, well, and whenever I leave in the morning when I work at a coffee shop, I always leave my laptop there, no problem. I get on the train, no problem. My kids are visiting, you'll meet them tonight. They put in their headphones. My daughter's very small and she walks around. I have no worries whatsoever. I have no concern about crime, murder, rape, none of it. They just walk around doing what they're doing. And I think that's fantastic. That's phenomenal. I just love high trust societies. I was in New York recently and I put my phone, so we're sitting at a table and I put my phone on the table and the person I was with took her hand and slid it up and said, you have to keep your phone close to you. No one would ever say that to me.
That is very true.
Oh, you know what else? Adam Labor, I had him on the show, and he wears a Star of David on his neck. No problem. Try that in London.
No, there are some advantages to a homogeneous society, because not in every case, but homogeneity very often, as you described this, right, leads to higher degrees of trust. And usually
Yeah.
when people trust each other, when people know each other or feel a connection, they are less likely to do horrible things to each other. I mean, it's another thing that is, and this sometimes bothers me when I'm in the United States, and you see it here a little bit as well, kind of when you look at the buildings and you can tell those from the communist era,
Yeah.
but those who had
Yeah,
been
yeah.
had to be rebuilt very quickly after the war, which made sense, right? They needed living space, so they needed, so it made a lot of sense. But you had this phenomenon, I think I forgot.
Over here soon, yeah.
I forgot the name of the author, which shames me, but I remember the name of the paper. Which I'm sure many of your viewers know, the broken windows theory.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes.
And
it worked extremely well in
yeah.
New York, and it's still the paradigm. But
And-
explain that for everybody.
Well, the idea is that if you have small crimes, or if you persecute small crimes, usually the effect is that the larger crimes don't occur, are less likely to occur, and also the other way around. If you don't persecute small crimes, then you have an increase in larger crimes as well. Or to put it differently, what they did, and they did it with a couple of other incidents as well, they looked at what happens if you don't persecute is the wrong word, but when people smash windows.
Prosecute.
Prosecute, that's a better
Yeah,
word,
yeah.
yeah. When people smash windows in neighborhoods, or or when people allow graffiti on the wall and all
Yeah.
these things, and it turns out, it makes, if you think about it from a human perspective, it
yeah.
makes a lot of sense that if you live in a nice neighborhood, you want to maintain the niceness of the neighborhood. Like if you
How are you?
Gentlemen?
What's up, guys? Here we go. That's what I'm talking about. How's it going, man?
And you see they all smoke.
They all smoke. But see how nice they were? Everybody's cool here. I've like never had a problem with anybody here. So it's interesting. I went to, you know what a tiki bar is?
Yes.
Dude, I love tiki bars.
Are those the ones that have like this Hawaiian feeling to it?
Oh yeah, there's a fascinating history of tiki bars, but I went to this tiki bar and I'm on the street and here in Budapest, and I saw, that's like the main tourist area. I saw two things. I actually saw somebody graffitiing on the wall, and I got a video of it. And he had like some guy with him. And then when the guy looked at me to see if I was videoing, I pretended I was like, but then I sent
Convincingly, I hope.
well, I hope so. Well, he didn't, we didn't engage in fisticuffs, fortunately. But then I sent that video to the chief of police. I did. I just sent it right to him. I said, my name's Peter Boghossian, and I found someone graffitiing your wall. And
Any
I have
feedback?
a video of him. No, he didn't. I didn't get any feedback. But and then I saw someone for the first time ever in all the years I've been coming here try to sell me drugs, and I tried to get a video of him too.
What kind of drugs? Like,
I didn't ask, but he's like, oh, he went like this, so maybe cocaine or something. Yeah, but even
or he was asking for a tissue.
or he was asking, no, he said, we want to buy something now. Even this, like, see this woman, get that woman over there. See that woman over there? Get that woman there. She's walking her dog. This place is really so civilized. Civilized is the perfect word. I call defecation committing social justice. The dog commits social justice in the grass. She picks it up.
Didn't you write a paper on that once?
Yeah, well, there's
a
no
peer-reviewed paper?
There's no dog rapes here. I guess it does not. But there really is a kind of like, I don't know. I get when Trump says "Make America Great Again." Like, I really get that. I get what that meant. Like, have you ever been to the NASA's Aeronautics Museum of Space?
In Washington, D.C.?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
What was your takeaway from that? Like, when you left there, what did you think?
Okay, can I just be provocative for a second?
Yeah, you didn't
But
like it?
I think that was I did like it, but I think that was the Kennedy. I think the Kennedy Space Center. That was the one that was run by a former German member of the SS. But that's a different story we could get into.
Yeah.
No, I liked it. I like because I always enjoyed about the United States. If you think about this from the perspective that they put somebody on the moon in the '60s, and there was barely 50 years after the first flight per se.
They didn't even have digital technology.
Yeah.
So I got out of that, and tell me if you felt the same thing, and I thought audacious. Like, that was
Inspired,
the
yeah.
perfect word. Like, these guys had nothing. They had, like, primitive technology, and they're thinking huge. Like, we don't really think huge anymore. And I think Trump captured something with that among older people with the Make America Great Again. Like, we don't really have any Manhattan projects for greatness anymore.
I mean, I would argue that Manhattan is no longer great anymore.
Well, New York is about to be a big cesspool if that lunatic gets in.
It reminds me, we once had, this was when I was studying in the United States, we had a group of Chinese students come to visit us. And it was in Kentucky, so I know a little bit also about the you know, as I said, I'm always fond of the rural areas. But what was funny, they were also taken by our university on a trip to Manhattan, or to New York, kind of to impress them. And when they came back, what they said was you know, said, so did you like it? And you know, Chinese students are very polite and they're very likable. And they said, yes, it was very nice. It was very, very nice. But it's a little bit like old Shanghai. So this is because, and I have been then in the same year because there was a return visit, so to speak. And I was to Shanghai, and I have to admit, if you can, and I say this again, I say this as a lover of the United States, and I love New York. My brother lives there, so I love New York. But it is true when you would ask which city appears more modern. Right? You take the high-speed rail from Shanghai, and I know the Americans always get crazy if somebody says high-speed rail because they see it as you know, the most sinful thing in the world. But if it works, it's quite nice. And the one that takes you from Shanghai airport to Shanghai, if you would drop a donut or a burger in the train, you would pick it up and eat it. You would not hesitate for a second. And it was Trump himself, by the way, just as a reminder, who said, I think during his first campaign in 2015, that when you fly from anywhere in the world to JFK, you feel like arriving in a third world country. And he's not entirely wrong about this. And again, I say this as somebody who admires a country that during the Great Depression, and this is what people tend to forget, the Manhattan skyline, everybody admires, was put up during the Great Depression. As you said, it's like flying to the moon. It's like the NASA and all these projects, that if you have a strong spirit, even a depression cannot break you. If you are, let's call it for lack of a better term, dominated by a spirit of mediocrity, like even the best material conditions will not allow you to accomplish or repeat those feats. And I think this is very sad.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Every time I'm in the New York subway system, I just can't get over what a shithole it is. It's outdated, it's slow, it's dirty, it feels dangerous. And I don't know, I'd like to think, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure that the best days of the United States are ahead of us. But with the maybe even imminent election of Mamdani, and if you really look at the percentage votes, he was basically put in by the upper middle class, or he's about to be put in, but not the very, very wealthy, and not those people who are impoverished. And he has some completely deranged ideas, but this is democracy, and if that's what happens, just no federal bailout. I just want to stress again, this is like the worst section of Budapest. I mean, maybe you're not American, and so that you'll be like, well, of course it is. But for Americans, they're like, oh my God. Like, this is the worst section of Budapest. Are you kidding me? Let's say hi to these guys, see if they say hi. Hello. See, everybody's nice. Everybody's cool. Everybody says hello. They probably don't even speak English. You say hello. Nobody's knifing you. There's nobody committing social justice here. There are no tents. There's no homelessness. I mean, it's just civilized. I mean, I don't know. Now I'm going to get, 100 comments like, well, I remember when I used to live in Portland, I would, walk out my door and then turn left. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? Very civilized. Hello. Ni hao. I switched to Chinese. I don't know. Oh, look, this is a dog park. We don't see any, even the dogs can control themselves. They don't start raping each other all over the place. Look at the dogs, show the dogs. There's no dog rapes in this dog park. Very civilized.
Civilization on 2 and 4 legs.
There you go. Okay, so let me ask you a question. We've spoken before, you're not particularly optimistic about the future of Europe, is that right?
That is correct.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Define. I mean, it's a tricky question, because the obvious is always that if things seem bad, they probably are. But the main reason is because, as I said before, it's not so much the conditions that we currently experience, but it's what I described previously as this mediocrity of spirit.
Yeah.
And what I mean by this is that a growing number of people are getting, or those who could probably affect change. It is a democracy, as you said, but it's so hard to get a crucial mass together because everybody seems to be demoralized, and as a consequence of that, they're also demobilized.
Yeah.
And
What do you think they're demoralized about here?
in Eastern Europe
Or in Western or Eastern Europe?
Well, because in Eastern Europe, I think the problem is actually not that significant. I think the biggest problem that Eastern Europe has at the moment, everybory has that, but for them it's the
Inflation?
biggest. No, demography. They don't.
The
Nobody.
population
Yeah,
collapse.
nobody has
Oh,
enough
interesting.
children. But in Eastern Europe, I think it's on the list of problems. That's their major problem. Because as I said before, as long as you have a people, you can get through any crisis. But there will still be a recognizable Hungary or Poland 300, 400, 500 years from now. So
Yeah.
they somehow, I hope, that there might be fewer Poles, fewer Hungarians, unless
But
they
they
turn
just imported literally millions of Ukrainians.
Not so much in Hungary. Poland, it's more. But even there,
Well, Eastern Europe, aren't there millions of Ukrainians?
There are.
Yeah.
But they don't really, let's say, they don't change the makeup of the country to the extent of migration that happened in Western Europe.
Okay, so let's talk about a taboo subject, something I've been thinking about. When you talk about Austria or any old Europe or the UK, and you have some people pushing a kind of ethno-nationalism. You only want people whose roots. Hello. Hello. Everybody's friendly here. Like, is it important that the people have genetic similarities, or is it more important that they just adopt cultural values?
It's a tricky question, and
It is, and I think it's important because no one talks about it.
It is important, and I think very often, since there is a certain overlap between ethnicity and culture, it can be a good proxy. But of course, correlation and overlap is not the same as causation. I mean, I give you an example, because I'm glad you bring this topic up. So somebody could be, let's take Britain as an example. Somebody could be born a first or second generation child of, let's say, migrants from Nigeria or from India, or you name it. And let's assume they grew up in a family that really embraced Britishness. So they really raised those children as British, or as English, actually.
Yeah.
Now, somebody would justifiably say so that from an ethnic perspective,
Yeah.
they are not English. That is correct. They are Nigerian, they are Indian, they're Pakistan. But culturally, they might be fully English. Now take the opposite example. You have an ethnic English family that for whatever reason moved to India, and the children born there are second generation English ethnicity in India, but for whatever reason that family decided that they fully want to embrace the Indian way of life.
Okay.
So who would then be if we take those two families, who would then be a better fit to maintain, let's say, the culture of England?
Well,
you
obviously.
probably precisely.
Yeah.
So this is an extreme example. I don't want to take it to the absurd, but this is why I sometimes think that the argument that the ethno-nationalism goes too far. And I would redefine ethnicity a little bit in the way that when we talk about, there's a genetic and biological component to it. But I think the main thing is it's an attachment to a country's history and the country's past. Do you see the past of the people or the majority of the people of the country you live in? Do you see it also as part of your past, or do you see yourself as something separate? And sometimes that I completely grant. If you are of a different skin color, like it's probably much more difficult to do so. Like if I would be, a black Austrian, let's say my grandparents, World War II, my great grandfather, my grandfather was an American soldier, whatever happened, right? It will be more difficult to fully embrace being part of Austria's history and embracing its past, because I'm so obviously visually different from it, right? This has always been the big advantage of the United States.
Yeah.
That the United States, for everything, were never that tightly connected to the ethnic concept, because it is, and I don't mean to glorify it, but it's so true, it is a proposition nation. It's easier to integrate into an idea than it is into a history, into a nation, if we want to take the clearest meaning of the word. And this brings me, Peter, to another very important topic, because sometimes the worst conspiracies have a kernel of truth. So one of the reasons why, for example, you had significant participation of, for example, Jews, or a disproportionate participation of Jews, let's say, in the Russian Revolution.
Yeah.
Or, by the way, which nobody ever talks about, Protestants in the French Revolution. It's
Okay.
because these were people that felt that under the existing system, they could not easily, only very difficultly, like become a full part, a full member of the society, of the political, social, cultural system. So it makes complete sense that they attach themselves to ideologies which would allow them the full participation. So you had Protestants in uber-Catholic
Super
France,
interesting, yeah.
and you had, of course, then very often Jews in these movements as well.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying this is because what is very often these days presented as some wild conspiracy, I think is something that makes complete sense from the perspective of human nature. If I live in a society and it is dominated by an idea that at least has the tendency, I know now I'm sounding almost like a leftist, but that has a tendency to exclude me for whatever reason, be it my religion, skin color, heritage. And then there is a competing ideology that would say, listen, about all these things that make you different, we don't care about them. Well, then of course I would immediately be drawn to that other ideology. Again, this does not apply in every case. And
Okay.
I'm not, I don't want to overdo it, but sometimes when we see the overrepresentation of certain groups in certain movements and ideologies, it makes sense, right? There's a logical reason to it, not just weird conspiracy and some demonic forces that are at play.
So when we started talking about this, so we have Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and in Eastern Europe, the primary concern is demography.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah,
and you see those in the politics.
But that doesn't necessarily have a genetic component.
As I said, since there's very often very strong, call it overlap, call it correlation, you can have certain groups that then can very easily, as I said, become Hungarian, because there is, like you could say, is there like a Hungarian phenotype? Is there an Austrian phenotype? You can make that claim, but I guarantee you, if somebody moves from Ukraine to Hungary, or from Poland, or even from Austria for that matter, 3 generations down the road, nobody can say, wait a moment, I know your face, you're Austrian, because the differences are just too small.
Okay, so what problem does Western Europe face?
Well, the problem in Western Europe is, first of all, since we talked about the Russians, we can stick to it for a second, even though he was Georgian. Right? Stalin had this famous saying that quantity has a quality all of its own. In order to integrate into a majority, well, you need a majority. And I know you had a long conversation with Matt Goodwin in the UK.
Yeah.
If you have areas in the UK where the British or the English, or then whichever term you want to use, are no longer the majority, but
like
the minority,
Whitechapel and other,
exactly, then they will integrate into the other society.
Yeah.
And we talked about this also. Go on.
Well, okay, so I know people are going to listen to this, and a lot of people say, well, what's the problem if it just becomes majority Arab and Muslim? So what? Who cares?
Well, I think the counter question would be, would those people like to live in a majority Muslim or Arab country? Because very often the argument is made by people who live in Western countries, which indicates to me that they actually enjoy the Western way of life.
So I think a lot of those, I think it's similar to Queers for Palestine.
In a sense.
I think it's such a profoundly ignorant thing. I think people don't even understand that concept. Oh shit, how are we gonna cross this? Look how nice people, get the car stopping. Look how nice people are. Thank you, Kirsten Sepam. Everybody's so nice here. Okay. So this is good. Let's walk in the cemetery and have this talk. So, oh, that's kind of cool. Get that building right there. Get some of this. Kirsten Sepam, you want to talk to him? Okay, well, the cemetery didn't work out. Okay, so let's, okay.
I mean, to answer, Julie, to answer your question, right, hypothetically, you can give this kind of nihilistic answer to every question, right? When you say, I don't know, you say, last year, 10,000 children died in car accidents, you can say, well, why is it a problem? You can say this about everything, but I think the counter question is always, okay, fine, if you say it doesn't matter, would you be willing to live under the consequences, or let's say in places or areas where the consequences of these policies are the most or directly felt?
Yeah, but again, that's where you get Queers for Palestine. You have people who are so ignorant. They could not find these places on a map. They don't know history. They don't understand anything.
But I don't know if it's ignorance. Like, we had this conversation before. I'm never sure if is it ignorance or is it boredom?
Okay, so I had an idea years ago. Every time someone says from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, give them a blank map and see how many countries in the Middle East they can name. I don't know if anybody's done that. I assume it's kind of an obvious idea. Someone will have done it. I just think it's pure emotion and pure virtue signaling. There's just nothing.
And I think that's true. And it is to look for something resembling an existential struggle,
Yeah.
which we are, and this is always my most controversial take, on the first glance, a welfare state or a social security net like seems very, very enticing.
Yeah.
But of course, if you reach a level where it takes away anything, you know, anything that would put together meaning, if you want, or if you never have a truly existential crisis to overcome in your life, I would argue you have never truly lived. And I think that is a problem that we have, at least partially, in the West, which is that it's on the one hand.
I want to go by these guys. I'm going to say hello to them and see if they respond. Go ahead.
And this is the big problem. I would even go so far and say that, and we talked about this before, that the more you try to solve the economic or the demographic crisis by more government handouts, I think the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, I agree.
Cut them all, make children an economic necessity again, and you have children.
What's up, guys?
See ya.
How are you? How's it going, man? How you doing? Good. See that? Everybody's cool here. Everybody. Unfucking believable. Everybody. Never had a problem here. Anyway, so you're not optimistic about Western Europe?
Not at the moment. And the reason for it is, as I said before, is there is and this is one of the most controversial things people always say, but I think there's something to it, because there is slowly but surely there is a replacement population already there. Like if Poland, let's say over the next 2 generations, halves its population, that's a problem, but it will still be distinguishably Polish. But in Germany, in Austria, in other parts in Western Europe, it's not just that the French and the Italians are disappearing, it's that they are being replaced by somebody else. Now, again, as you said, you can say, well, why does it matter to you? And my answer to this would be, to be quite honest, because I like the Italians. It's like asking, I don't know, a football fan, why does it matter to you?
But you could have all black Italians, or no?
No. No, this is where the ethno-nationalists at least have somewhat of a point, which is that at some point, then the culture that is, or the background culture of these people is becoming the dominant culture. This is, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
If every year, let's say 2,000 people from sub-Saharan Africa would come to Italy.
And the population rate?
Yes. And it would be like this very super slow grinding, right? Then I would grant you the possibility that maybe, centuries down the road, you would have something that still resembles Italy, even though everybody looks significantly different. But this is not what's happening. Right? This is what you see in certain neighborhoods. It is not, for example, that a significant part, not all of them, but a significant part of the Muslim population is not Europeanizing, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They are not. They didn't do it yesterday. They don't do it today. They won't do it tomorrow.
So, in the spirit of being totally honest, don't you think many Europeans wanted that? Or they wouldn't have allowed it to happen. They must have wanted that. Tony Blair, Angela Merkel, they must have wanted that.
You mean the political leadership?
Well, I mean Europeans in general, and in democratic states, they're roughly synonymous, right?
I don't think that's the case. And they, of course, have been...
You don't think that the Europeans or the Germans or the Belgians want to be replaced by... I just find that hard to believe. I was literally just in Belgium, and the city was utterly unrecognizable from when I was there in the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, but I don't think that anybody, or that the number of... As I said before, there is a significant number who just accepted it as a fact. Then there is a small number who is willing to do something about it. And then there is, in my opinion, probably an even smaller number that is in favor of it. The problem is that among these groups, power is unequally distributed. So those who want it, or those who are in favor of it, are much more powerful than the demoralized and demobilized and those who want to do something against it.
And why do you think they're in favor of it?
We talked about this previously.
I know, and I want to go over. I want to punch it home.
It's as I think a lot of it, at least in the European case, is a sense of historical guilt. Is the idea that migration is, or open borders are a form of atonement for the supposed sins of the past. And you've written about this quite a lot. And where this came from, I think, is we can have a long conversation. Was it the Frankfurt School, right, that came over in the 40s and 50s? But I think a lot of it has been, and this is probably an excruciatingly boring answer, but I think it's at least part of the story, is that you had a growing elite
Yeah.
without anything to do. But an
The
extreme,
overproduction in the elite
yeah,
class
exactly.
as well.
That's Peter Turchin's argument.
Yeah,
Exactly. Right?
exactly.
The overproduction of the elite. So they had nothing to do with themselves, had a massively inflated sense of themselves. So the only thing they could do was revolt against the existing system. Now, what was the existing system in the 60s, if you want, at least in Europe? But
Yeah.
it was a quasi-culturally, ethnically homogeneous society, and this is precisely against the thing, among other things, against which they revolted.
Yeah, it's interesting, this whole idea that diversity is our strength, 1,000 repetitions equals a truth. Could Western Europe do anything to, is this the most dodgy? I want to go to the most dodgy neighborhoods.
I think Peter is looking for a place where you hear gunshots ringing in the back.
Yeah, but you won't. I mean, they.
It is Budapest after all.
Okay, so we've been walking in the worst sections of Budapest. What do you think?
Well, I don't feel any less safe than from the place where we started from.
I mean, we could do this at night, but then we'd need lighting,
Yeah.
and that would be a problem, but everybody's reasonable. There are no gunshots, there's no like savagery, barbarism. So my first question is, what can Western Europe do to save itself?
Well, to quote an academic I've become a huge fan of, David Betts,
Yeah.
I think we are, at least in the cities, I think we are past the point of return. I think that we're past the point of no return.
I agree. I totally agree. And so the next question is, why do you think people are not being honest about that?
Well, because the main thing that would have to happen would be that those who are responsible for it would have to admit that they made a huge mistake. And we all know how difficult it is to admit that you made a mistake. And I think that goes
Especially if it's civilizational.
precisely.
So, but I think it's over. You think it's over. You don't think there's a way out of it. I don't think there's a way out of it.
Well, let me put it this way.
Okay.
When I say we are past the point of no return, I mean we are past the point of no return that this can resolve itself in a purely reformed, peaceful way.
Agreed.
So, do
Okay.
I think that something like a Western Renaissance of whatever kind is hypothetically possible? Yes. Do I fear that in order for it to be possible, things would have to be done that are unspeakable today? I think the answer to that is also yes.
You mean round up people and just ship them out of the country?
Not even. I mean, I think that at some point would be part of the equation. But I'm not even talking about this doing in a violent, a brutal way. I'm even thinking more along the lines of saying, for example, think about busing in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. That you basically break up segregated neighborhoods. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's this, by the way, what the Danish are trying to do in Copenhagen and other cities. That they say there should not be more than, let's say, 30% of people from a specific cultural background or a non-Western background in major cities. But of course, how do you do this, right? If people live there, so how do you tell them you have to move from part A of the country to part B?
Yeah.
So this potentially then means the application of incentives or I would say in the worst case of force.
Okay, so if you think I'm off base, I really need you here. Let these people go by. Köszönöm szépen.
Hova
Ja.
lesz ez a forgatás?
YouTube.
YouTube?
Igen.
Egon, so Macron, maybe Starmer, has said Palestinian state. I think the reason they're doing this is some kind of realpolitik, is because they realize that their population, I think it's a kind of appeasement to the native population, so they don't riot and start mass murdering everybody, to delay civil war.
I think there are a few aspects to this. Now, one is I do think that, but at least in the West, with a few exceptions, we probably give too much credit to the impact the whole Israel-Gaza thing has. So I don't think that would be the spark that would bring the whole the crisis to explosion. Now, however, what you see is, and this is particularly true in the United Kingdom, they have recently decided to lower the voting age to 16.
Yes,
So
it's just crazy to me. It's totally crazy.
But everybody is talking about, well, what does this mean for the level of maturity of the average voter? But if you look at the demographic makeup or the developing demographic makeup of the UK, of course, the younger parts of the population are also increasingly the ones with the most significant migrant background. So this is, you are basically encouraging the ethnic vote. Now,
Okay.
as I say, you can be, as you said before, right, what does it mean? Well, you can be for this or you can be against it, but the fact is that you get a voting bloc, a growing voting bloc, that doesn't really feel any particular attachment to a country, its people, and its history. And if you do not have a shared past, it's very difficult to have a shared future.
Okay, do you think the idea that we hold that Western Europe is in deep trouble, the cities of Western Europe is in deep trouble, the demographics are changing, and that's not going to bode well for the future in terms of the prosperity and the social cohesiveness of the society, do you think that we are in the minority on that view?
No. I think there is a significant majority of people who view it that way, but the problem is that those people feel as if they don't have a voice. I mean, this is again an argument that I'm very happy to say that more and more serious academics are also dealing with. That they're saying, this is what I meant before, it's the demobilization. So there is a phenomenon that we observe at the moment, is that the governing elite, and I don't like the word elite either, but I think it describes it quite well.
Yeah.
And this also goes into the whole Palestine issue that you mentioned before. They don't want to mobilize their quote-unquote own people. They're more interested in mobilizing somebody else. And this is actually a very clever strategy because, of course, despite everything we're discussing, at the moment, the Germans or the ethnic Germans or the culturally, whatever you want to call it, Germans in Germany are still the majority. The French in France are still the majority. The British, the English in England and Britain are still the majority. It's just that they don't really have, at the moment, any significant ability to organize and mobilize in a way to have the weight that they hypothetically would have. We are, interestingly enough, who would have thought, we are very much in the problem that Karl Marx was describing about the working class. Right? The reason why Marx argued that the capitalist stage of development is the final stage before the revolution is because he says the working class, they know how to read, they know how to write because the capitalist has to educate them and then they can organize. And we are now in a similar situation that wherever possible, and we see this, to give you one example, this is why we discuss about imprisoning Marine Le Pen, banning the AfD in Germany, the point of imprisoning Donald Trump, assassinating Donald Trump, which, by the way, just as a quick side note, which is nobody talks about this anymore. Like, you don't hear a single word about the guy who tried to shoot the then candidate, former president and now actual president of the United States of America. This has been completely put to rest. It's a very odd thing, but it tells you precisely the story, which is that everybody who puts it on themselves to speak for what I would argue still is a majority is being excluded or is attempted to be excluded from political discourse.
Sorry to interrupt, I just want to point this out. Get the photo, get that? The worst neighborhood. We're now in the worst neighborhood in Budapest. So what do you think the stance of the United States should be given the radical demographic change in Europe, the economic engine of Europe, Germany is not doing well, the European economy, by and large, is not doing well. What do you think the American stance should be?
I think at the end of the day, this is a European problem the Europeans have to solve. I mean, it's nice if there is no sabotage from the Americans. We are here in Hungary, in Budapest, and the previous ambassador to Budapest was very hostile to the Hungarian government, which I think is also totally inappropriate of an ambassador.
David Preston. God,
yes.
He was something else. What, talk about someone who's openly antagonistic. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And the same, we saw a lot of this now being uncovered, the role played, for example, by USAID, where money is being funneled to NGOs who tend to support these open border policies and to exacerbate the crisis that we're experiencing. But at the end of the day, one element of America First and of MAGA is that it's about America. Donald Trump was elected to be the president of the Americans, and he takes care of the problems of the United States, and I think Europe has to start taking care of its own problems. And this is going to be an interesting thing. Different countries will find different ways to deal with this. Some of it will be, can you give a concrete example?
Sure.
Denmark, a very small country. But I think in Denmark, they really have understood that how things are going or were going in recent years it's not sustainable. So what they did, I mentioned this before, right? So they started to make sure that certain neighborhoods are not become parallel societies.
Yeah.
They make
I
sure
know,
that
yeah.
in schools integration takes place. They limited asylum or the rights for asylum. So they made all these steps. They're looking for exceptions from the European Pact on Migration, as do the Netherlands now. So some countries have decided that they don't want to go down the route of revolution. They want to go down the route of reform. And I hope that they're going to be successful. And as I said before, I don't think it is yet too late. I don't think it is too late for the UK.
I want to show you something real quick over here. So, do you see these scooters?
Yes?
So these are Lime scooters. Everywhere I go in the world, I see these scooters.
I saw them somewhere in Spain, yes. And in Vienna too, they truly are everywhere.
Yeah, now, we tried that in Portland, Oregon, and the citizens, I don't know what percentage of them, but took all of them and threw them in the river. We can't have nice things. We can't have nice things because our people are primitive savages and barbarians, or at least a significant minority of them, to make life shit for everybody else. So they take all of them, they throw them in the river, they destroy them. I just don't even, we're become, that's why I said, it seems like, I get the Make America Great Again. I get moving from a high trust to a medium to a low trust society. And again, I just want to point out, we are in the worst section of, are we in the worst section of Budapest? We are in the worst, this is the worst section of Budapest. Now I know for a European, you're like, well, no, this is the worst section of Budapest. I could totally live in that place and be utterly happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so,
I think the answer to the question is something that Americans always hate to hear because, I mean, I know you're good friends with James Lindsay, right?
yeah.
And he's, which I know is totally fine, he's a strong proponent of the more individualistic nature of American society, and a huge opponent.
Yeah, and because I'm a good friend of his, it doesn't mean I agree with everything he says.
But you're more than familiar with his work.
Yes.
And he's very strongly opposed to the let's say some would also more collectivist tendencies on the right, whether it's national conservatism or neo-nationalism. But as you said before, is of course, if you want people to take care of the public space, of the common space, they need to feel an attachment to the public and common space.
I totally agree. That's why I'm fascinated by how people treat the commons.
Yes.
I've never been to Japan, but the best place I've seen so far is Taiwan. Public restrooms,
Yep.
I find that if I take pictures of I've told the story before of the destruction of public restrooms, both in the United States in parks and in my kids' school, in which they closed all the boys' rooms from violence, from damage to the restrooms. Okay, so let me pose this question to you. You do think that Europe can reform course?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm also by nature an optimist, so I just don't want to believe that descent is irreversible. But of course, with every passing day, with every passing year, with every election where the current course is being continued, it gets harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, and respectfully, I'm going to push back and say that I disagree with you.
On which point specifically?
I think it's beyond hope.
But that's because you're by nature a pessimist.
No, it's because, so I always ask people, I go around the world and ask people, what would it take to change your mind? I'm going to answer my own question for myself, and you tell me if this is reasonable.
All right, go on.
What it would take to change my mind that Europe is not doomed is if it would immediately end illegal immigration.
All right.
Illegal immigration. I don't think it can do that. And because I don't think it can do even that, which is the lowest of the low-hanging fruit, I don't think it can make any meaningful policy change. Like, let me give you an example. It makes no sense whatsoever to me, let's go this way. It makes no sense whatsoever to me to deport people who have committed crimes if your borders aren't secure.
True.
Why would you deport them?
All true.
They're just gonna come back. So that, I don't see that happening.
As I said, if things continue the way they currently are, I think you're 100% right. But if you allow me to push back a little bit on from my end, historical comparisons should never be overstretched. Well, think about the Civil War in the United States. Okay. I'm sure that at the time, many people thought, okay, the United States can never recover from this as a unified nation. The rift is gonna be so deep, the differences are so significant, you cannot have a unified country after such an event. And now look at I mean, some people would say it probably even got worse than again in the 60s, but overall, I would say for a very significant amount of time, and even still today, despite all the negative things and the issues and the problems, the United States, for now, are a fairly unified country.
There's a total difference there in that's, in English is an expression, that's comparing apples and oranges. That's two different categories. The United States has a history of immigration and welcoming people. And my grandparents are all immigrants to the United States. Europe doesn't have that. They don't have those traditions, those customs, those cultures.
I'm not sure. This is always a little bit of a rewriting of history. And what I mean by this is that migration on the continent, particularly within Europe, or what we describe as Europe, has been going on for a very, very long time. And even when you talk about American migration, it were people from, or for the most part, with few exceptions, it were people from European countries, and the same people in Europe did also migrate back and forth. Like you had people from France going to Germany, from Germany going to Austria, from Hungary. So this is still not in a different way, I agree with that. But it still did happen. So this idea that the European, particularly the 19th century empires, were these homogeneous nation states, I mean, that only happened as a consequence of the ethnic cleansing after World War II. But I would argue that from a cultural perspective, Peter, from a cultural perspective, the differences between, let's say, the American South and the American North in 1861 were more significant than the cultural differences between, let's say, a Frenchman and a German in 1872, even though they fought a war.
Okay, so we're gonna go in a random shop here. So
Peter, looking for a new fragrance?
I'm looking for a new fragrance. I've never, so many stores here are like this. It kind of reminds me of New York. It's small. Let's go down this way. So, Ralph.
One of the coolest differences between Vienna and Budapest is that, and I think this was probably due to the excitement after the fall of the Iron Curtain. Like in stores in Hungary, you get like all the different flavors, right? You get the Coke Zero, the Coke Cherry Zero, the Pepsi Max strawberry cream, whatever. In Austria, no chance.
Really?
No chance.
I remember
people don't like new stuff. I love my country, but they don't like
Berlin
new
after
stuff.
the wall fell, like right then, and you couldn't get bananas anywhere because all the East Germans would buy up bananas.
It was new. It was exciting.
Yeah, you want to be in it? Yeah, we'll interview you. Give me a minute. Let me check out. So that's good. We're gonna talk to these kids. You want something? Dude, just get whatever.
No.
You kids want a drink? You want a drink? No, you're good. What's your name, man?
John.
John. What's your name, man?
David.
David?
Yes.
What's your name?
David as well.
David. Two Davids. You guys brothers?
Cousins.
You're cousins.
I need to get a theater for the sunlight. Can you set up seats, stand on the other side?
Yes. Sorry.
Let's move over here.
It's a bit awkward, you know.
No, you guys are good. Are you from Budapest?
I'm from Budapest, but I live in England originally.
Oh, you live in England. That's why you speak so well. And how old are you guys?
I'm 16.
Yeah. What do you do in Budapest?
So we're just walking around, innit, and then get some mackies. That's it, pretty much. Hanging out, cousins.
You guys speak English?
A little bit.
I speak the most, but they just understand it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you like England better or do you like Hungary better?
Yeah. What do you like?
Careful.
England or Hungary?
Okay. So the thing about Hungary, it's
Oh, we got to get his on mic.
Yeah, but he's standing so close that he's going to be fine.
Yeah. Stand closer to Ralph. That's okay.
Speak to my chest.
Yeah. Speak to Ralph's chest. It's not creepy. It's good.
Hungary is more like active, but England is more chill. So here there's more problems, yes, but in England it's more chill of a place. It's more active here, like.
What
where in England,
problems? Yeah.
Where in England do you live?
Pardon?
Where in England do you live?
I live in Stoke-on-Trent.
All right.
Yeah, it's more chill there. It's more chill. Yeah.
And you like Budapest?
I like Budapest because it's
Get
my
closer.
culture.
Get closer.
I like Budapest because it's my culture, but it's more chill in England.
Do you like Americans?
Americans. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you like Americans?
Yeah, where?
Do you like Americans?
We're getting put on the spot. So I don't know.
Very diplomatic. I like it.
Yeah,
Really.
you try to think.
All right. Well, good man. Nice talking to you, bro. Right on. Cheers, bro.
John,
Keep
David,
up the good
David.
work. Keep up
Thanks.
the good work.
Take care.
You guys are gonna be famous.
That's famous, yeah.
You guys gonna be famous, bro.
Big up the gypsies and that.
Big up. You guys are gonna be famous. See you, man.
Don't forget to say 8. Go down to 8th District. The best part in Hungary.
Yes.
8.
Really? All right, let's go there.
Alice, can you come with us?
Yeah, we'll come. Let's go.
Come. We're gonna go here.
This is the best part.
Yeah, this is not the best part. 8th District, the best.
What makes it the best?
Nicest people.
The nicest people in the 8th district.
Pardon?
In the 8th district.
Yeah.
This
8th District. Yeah, this here now is 8th District. Yeah.
And you guys live here.
Yeah. Nicest people going.
I think this neighborhood looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, smiling.
Well, because in relation to the neighborhoods in the US, like Chicago, this is awesome.
Yeah. It's nice.
And what grades are you guys in?
So
What like
they are doing music in school. Waar hoor je met naked? He's doing piano, he's learning an instrument, and he's a singer as well.
he's a singer.
Yeah.
Tell him to sing something. Sing something. Come on, dude. Sing something. Go ahead. Sing something. I'm gonna agree. Go ahead. Sing away. Go ahead, bro. Sing. Go ahead. Sing.
Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she breathing? Just like the fading dawn.
Awesome.
Well, none of you guys gonna clap for him.
No, it's good. I'll clap for him. Yeah, woo! That was great. Great. How are you? Hello, how are you? What's your name?
Daria.
Nice to meet you. Are you Hungarian?
No,
Where are you from?
I'm from Russian Federation.
Russian Federation. It's very nice to meet you. Welcome to Hungary. What's your name?
Stacy.
What is it?
Stacy.
Very nice to meet you. That's a difficult name to pronounce. This is with nice people.
Yeah, nice people, but I'm not gonna lie, most gypsies are here.
But nice people, but no one's given me any trouble. We've been walking. Ralph, has anybody given you trouble?
Not so far.
There's no trouble. We've had no trouble. If anybody gives us trouble, just start singing. Just bust out in that.
Isn't she lovely? That's what we gotta sing.
That's good.
The right one.
So we're in the 8th district.
Yeah?
Everybody's nice to us.
Yeah.
We don't see any homelessness. There are no homeless people here.
There is homeless.
I don't see them. I don't hear any gunshots.
It's me home.
Okay. So now that we have this guided tour with our new friends,
Into the belly of the beast of the 8th district.
love it. I'm loving the 8th district. Okay, so what were we talking about before? We were talking about societies, we were talking about integration, renewal, what can be done. I've always maintained that there's something, like if you look at the and then the other thing we were talking about the posture of the United States towards Europe, and you said that the Europeans needed to control their own, to take more responsibility for their own situations.
You know, hand it over to the next generation.
Hand it over to the next
The young
generation.
people.
That's
the
it.
future. From Stoke-on-Trent to the world.
Okay, so let's continue our conversation. We've met these nice people. Everybody's nice. So, I think when we see kids like this, I think that really is a reason for optimism. Like, I think if you go around the world, most people are like this. That doesn't mean there aren't psychopaths, obviously, but we also have to be honest about the nature of the problem, and that is there are a substantial number of people who simply refuse to assimilate into the host societies.
Agreed.
So we just have to be honest about the nature of the problem, and I don't think we're being honest about it. I do think that it's pretty much that Western Europe is in deep trouble,
Agreed.
to say the least. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a solution to the problem.
Let's put it this way: we don't know about a solution, but some kind of conflagration of one kind or another is going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen everywhere, right? I think this is also another important element of this. So it's whenever we have these conversations, it's important to we're mostly talking about the cities, and this is where I still have my hope. So if you can get people, now actually we go full circle from the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
If we can get people more out of the cities again, more back into the rural area. And what do I mean by this? I can say from my own personal experience, like if a rural community is, if it's not overwhelmed, probably the best place for integration, because you have no choice.
Rural.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
Because
Because there's not population density.
there's no population, and the thing is, you have this social control by the tight-knit community that can be very annoying. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to force anybody to live there forever.
Yeah.
But I can say again from personal anecdotal experience,
Yeah.
you can take people from all kinds of places, and if it's like if it's one Afghan family or one Egyptian family in an Austrian 10,000 people town, within the second generation, the children of that family are going to be as Austrian as it is possible for them. But again, it's a numbers game. That's always the most important thing. It's always a numbers game. Because if you have 15, because you have places, it's important to say, in the UK or in Germany, where you have then a population of 500 people, and they put 1,000 asylum seekers there. Well, then that's not going to happen. So this is always the thing. You need to basically thin it out. And like the Danish do, that's what I said. The Danish have this, they say there must be a limit to the number.
And that's where I disagree with a lot of people. So my sense is if you're in the country legally, we need to do everything we can to help people assimilate into the society. And yeah, that does mean providing opportunities and resources, etc. We have some new friends here that we're meeting. We have new friends. Hey, what's up, man? What's your name?
It's all gypsies.
All gypsies. All gypsies. Good, let's meet all the gypsies. They're afraid of the camera. These are your friends too? Hey, man, what's up, man? How you doing? Good job. Keep it up. Keep it up, the good work. What's your name? What's your name? Nice to meet you. What's your name, bro?
Milan.
Nice to meet you. Awesome. That's good. See, everybody's nice here. Everybody's cool. Bye! Oh, we're gonna go this way. These are all your friends? Yeah. Now the gypsies here, they know everybody? The other gypsies?
Most gypsies, because we have a lot of cousins here, so we just know each other,
Everybody's friends?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, watch out for the water. All right, we're gonna sit over here and Ralph and I are gonna finish our conversation, but it was nice to get to know you guys. Thank you. Köszönöm szépen. You got a good future ahead of you, son. Good for you.
Thanks,
Congratulations.
Can you say one more thing? It means good thing.
Yeah.
Szeretem a cigányokat. Szeretem a cigányokat.
Szeretem.
Cigány.
Cigány.
That's it.
Szeretem. Thank you. Thank you. Köszönöm.
Take care, guys. Take care. Take care.
Over here.
So what did he...
There's one more thing,
Yeah.
So my brother does music, but did not say his YouTube channel, just for going.
Yeah, say his YouTube channel. Go ahead. Say it again.
Daniano Official.
I'm a barber. Can I just say?
So where's your barbershop?
I live in Stoke-on-Trent, and it's called my Instagram, Dave_Cuts_. Thank you very much, Take care.
Pleasure,
guys.
pleasure.
So what did they make him say?
I love gypsies.
Is that what he said? I love gypsies. So,
well, he was the gypsy with the English background.
yeah. What are your impressions of the 8th district, the most dangerous district in Budapest, where everybody told me not to go?
Quite nice so far. I said no gunshots, young people, some of them boxing, children, and particularly if you look at the parks here, no needles on the ground, no people defecating in the streets.
Yeah, I haven't seen any social justice here at all.
Yeah, but not even like it's in San Francisco, right, where people attack you and throw their bowel movements or the results of their bowel movements on you.
Yeah.
So far, no homeless person. Although in all fairness, there are homeless people in Budapest. So
maybe,
sometimes the fans get too far and say there is no homelessness in Budapest. That's not entirely true.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been a good walk for you?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I think so
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Anything we should have talked about that we didn't talk about?
Well, I think we always come back to a similar topic, but maybe as a concluding remark, which is that one of the mistakes I see in a lot of current social analysis is that it very often looks at how the situation is, but I think what's more important is where it goes. Right? This is the thing, when, for example, it is absolutely objectively that we are probably in many areas, wealth, health and others, at least in some of them, doing much better than generations before us. But they were always on a trajectory of improvement, and we are on a trajectory of the opposite. I mean, look at even life expectancy.
I would also say we're on part. If I'm sorry to interrupt. Part of the reason is we're just not being honest about our problems.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely true. And this is, as I always say, it wasn't everywhere. But if you read the literature on, the 19th and early 20th century, it was a time of not everywhere. It was unequally distributed among the social classes. But it was very often a period of optimism. Right? Again, there were crises all the time. These were times of great turmoil. You had assassinations of presidents, of tsars, of emperors. There was a lot. I'm not saying these were glorious times, but if you look back at the things that happened in the realm of the artistic, in the realm of architecture, in the realm of philosophy, it's very hard to deny that the 19th and early 20th century was a time of great spirit, for lack of a better expression. And I like to regain some of that. Things have become negative, but also dull. I think, now we come back to the Queers for Palestine thing. I think there is a certain, people want, and I'm part of that, by the way. Whenever I say these things, I'm not saying
you're not part of Queers for Palestine.
No, but I understand everybody is looking, as I said before, for some kind of an existential struggle. You want, dullness is like a slow-moving death. The problem is, of course, and brings us back to the demographic problem. When people had families, or more people had families, you had a very significant, very important obligation. Meaning almost came as part of the package deal. I mean, look at Peter. Look at the people, the social justice warriors. Who are what's the typical description? What are their demographics? And what do they say? And very often it's very often women, highly educated, below the age of 29. No kids, no family. So there's a very specific type. It's a type, and men too. Don't get me wrong, not just women, but
it's
they
a mimetic transmission.
Yeah. And it appears that what they are looking for is almost a replacement for what in the past community life, family, and other things, the church community. Again, I'm not talking about the revival of religion, but it did fill that role. They no longer have it, and then you end up with weird things like Queers for Palestine, or trans the kids and give them puberty blockers at the age of 14, and it's very
it's interesting. I think the United States went through a tough period, but I think we know what to do to get out of it. I think Europe knows what to do to get out of it. They just lack the political will, and that's why I'm very.
Well, I think even in the United States, there's a certain, and we have it in Europe, of course, too. That's not there's not an indictment by any means, but there's a certain dishonesty about their own history as well, because you had in the cities, in all these places, you had these parts of society, as you had in the UK in the Victorian age and as you had in continental Europe. You had all these organizations that were either taking care of, so-called in the UK, it was the fallen girls, right? A movement against prostitution. You had the temperance societies in the United States. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of prohibition. I think that was probably a mistake that went too far. But there was a significant chunk of the population that cared about the rest of the population. And I think that is not entirely, but that is at least significantly less than it was in the past. And this brings me back to what we said a couple of minutes ago or half an hour ago, is I'm a huge fan of individualism, of individuality. So I don't want to go down the totalitarian route. But this idea of caring about your neighbor, and even maybe even too much, sometimes being up in somebody else's business, it's not always all bad. Because sometimes people do struggle, right? Whether it's alcoholism, whether it's addiction. And having a support system, even if it's not what you really want, because maybe it's easier to give in to your addiction, but have people trying to drag you out of it, that can be a good thing. And unfortunately, very often, pure individualism is not an answer to that. So I think in the West, sometimes we could do with a little bit more collectivism.
That's interesting. So that's not my solution to the problem, but I understand that argument and how it could be.
Let me maybe replace the term collectivism. Let me say this: we've moved so far from community to society, you know, the famous distinction between Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft, that we need to find ways to revive community again, because
Okay, so that I'm cool with. That's much better.
Let me put it
to
that
me.
way.
Yeah. Ralph, thanks, man.
Peter,
Thanks
great
for your
pleasure.
friendship, my friend.
Anytime.
I appreciate our conversations. All right, that was it. We're here, and that was our tour of the 8th District. Met some people, did some shopping a little bit, chilled out a little bit. Love this place.